Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. I have crazy expensive tripods in my studio. They're 7 feet tall. They hold almost 40 pounds on the top of them. They weigh 25 to 30 pounds apiece. That seems absolutely insane when most people today record with their phone. But just yesterday, I watched a woman put a $5,000 camera and lens on top of a $15 tripod. I also watched that camera bounce on the ground because she had all the right gear and not enough help, support, readiness to deploy it. That's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. You're going to want to listen close to this one.
Master the story power method to captivate your audience, improve workplace culture, and 10x your fundraising.
Scan the QR code to book your first coaching call or visit storypowercoach.com.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at storypoweracademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training.
I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. It amazes me how many clients, I can go back, I won't name them because that wouldn't be nice, but I can tell you that I've had at least half a dozen, maybe more, that by the time they hire me, they've already paid a PR firm $50,000. One particular client traveled around the world, been on all kinds of podcasts and TV interviews, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Almost 150 grand invested. Another one had virtual assistants in multiple nations, had AI working on things in the background. The list just went on and on of the various things that they were doing. And yet what they didn't have yet was substance, content. In fact, one of them had paid $16,000 to a book publishing company and hadn't written a single word. They didn't even have an outline. The company that they paid for the publishing said, well, you need an outline. And they're like, yeah, I know, but what goes in the outline? And I said, well, you're the author. You would tell us. And this back and forth happened to the last of my recollection with this particular client. More than $16,000 was invested and nary a book was published. Oh, they had a beautiful cover design. They had, in fact, they had endorsements for a book not yet written. They had some ideas, some brainstorming sessions. They had an accountability coach calling them every week going, where's the next chapter? Where's the next chapter? Where's the next chapter? They had ghostwriters making stuff up. But the author themselves wanted to have a beautiful book with a phenomenal cover. Of course, it had a website. It had a beautiful book cover and a beautiful website and endorsements and testimonials and video clips from people who said how awesome this book was that had yet to be written. In fact, the website, the book cover, the book designs, the endorsements, they were like an eggshell with a cesspool on the inside. And I don't mean that the content was not good. And I don't mean that the author wasn't good, because it was some solid substance that we worked on for over 6 months. But they never got to the place where they felt like this is good enough to submit for a book. It's not something I want my name on. I mean, my name's already on a beautiful cover, but I don't think the substance of the book is solid enough to put my name on. They're not the only one. I've worked with a handful of clients who already paid the publisher. They already paid the ghostwriter. They already paid the graphic designer. They've already paid the video editor to create the shorts and the reels and the cover designs for their video series, for their podcast. They've already paid for the airtime. And if you ask them, what's the topic of your podcast? What will you talk about? Who will your ideal guests be? Who will your ideal audience be? They don't have a clue. They never really thought about it. They haven't pondered the notion that something in their life gives them the credibility and the credentials to offer something. I mean, people look at a Joe Rogan and they go, well, he's got 20 million followers. I mean, Netflix offered oodles and gobs of money. Right? Other podcast platforms, iHeart, and I think it was CBS or NBC, one of those others, said, come over here with us, because they saw the traffic, they saw the eyeballs, they saw the number of people watching his show and the breadth of people that he could get on the show. Now, I know they've got on the show and they've talked about smoking a blunt, and they've got on the show and they've talked about mushrooms, and they got on the show and they've talked about politics and shadow bans and real bans and demonetizing and self-termination. The breadth of that show goes all over the place. And a lot of people think, well, I've just got to do what he does so that I can, be rich and famous like him. And what you forget is everything he did to do what he does. John Maxwell says it all the time. People come up with me after I talk. They see me on the platform in front of 500 or 600 people, 5,000 or 6,000, 10 or 15,000 or 50,000 people. And they say, John, I want to do what you do. I'm so in love with what you do. I love the impact that you have. I love the way you connect with people. I love the way you move the audience. I love the way you get paid. Right? Teach me to do what you do. And regularly, and it's in many of his books, John says, are you willing to do what I did so you can do what I do? See, a lot of people think if I have a great cover design, if I have a good ghostwriter, if I have good PR, and I know people who've gotten themselves into a PR firm, they've got interviews on all kinds of podcasts, and if you were to go back and watch 15 of the different podcasts that they were a guest on, the consistency in what they offer the world is non-existent. Right? You could watch them be interviewed in 15 different places, and there's no, this is who they are, to be found in all of those interviews. Why? Well, because someone was paid to build their personal or perhaps professional brand, but there's no substance to the brand. It's a beautiful book cover with blank pages on the inside. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have been transferred from the pockets of those desperate to rise up and change the world to the pockets of those who have a really good sales pitch, a really slick, tantalizing, vanity tickling sales pitch. I went to the network meeting where I saw the camera bounce on the floor. And when we were ready to leave the house, I knew we've got to go to a graduation beforehand, then we're going to have lunch with the grandkids, and then we're going to go to this event. But my old black watch is the one I wear pretty much all the time. It's a nice watch. I mean, it's not too unfancy. See, it's a nice watch. It doesn't look like, like I picked it up at the local gutter. I mean, it's an older watch, but it's a nice watch. But I have a nicer watch. I have a nicer watch with the blue swirled face on the inside and the stainless steel on the outside and the gold colored dive ring on the top, and it's a beautiful pro diver watch. It's called a Grand Diver. It's actually an older, very expensive watch that I bought secondhand. I know. I bought it secondhand from a resale shop where they handle estate sales. And somebody had a very nice collection of these brand name watches. And I was able to get a few of them really cheap. I mean, if I told you what I paid for the watch, you would think I stole it. But it's a pretty watch. And it's one of those watches that if you see the brand name, or if you just see the watch across the room, you're like, wow, nice. And when I got ready to go to this meeting, I knew that I wanted to at least step up my game a little bit. I put on a nice shirt and put on my nicest watch and make sure my rings are clean and, not filled with food from dinner last night. And so I put the watch on. And then I checked it to see if the time was accurate. And I realized not only is the time not accurate, the second hand isn't moving. And I looked at it a couple of times and I thought about it. And then I mapped out in my head the geography of every place I knew that I was going to be. And I asked myself, is there any chance that I'll go buy a place that sells this watch and they can put a battery in. Because it would be kind of embarrassing to show up at this meeting and have somebody say what time it is. Oh, let me check my watch. I don't know, because it still says noon. That would be a little embarrassing, right? But I wanted the prettier watch, not the everyday watch, the special watch, the one that gets a little attention, the one that blings a little bit. I mean, I literally went to this black watch because I used to have what they call the automatic, which means every time you move your hand, it recharges itself. The problem was you could actually hear it in the microphone. Every time I would move my hand by the microphone, you could hear the little wheels inside charging the battery up. And so I thought, well, I don't want to wear that anymore, but I have an Apple Watch with a silicone band. And so I would wear the silicone band and the Apple Watch. And then I realized every time I moved my hand, the Apple Watch would light up because it thought I was trying to read the watch. And so that got very frustrating because the camera would change its white balance because of the white screen, or it would change its focus depth because the brightest thing is what it focuses on. And those things became a little frustrating. So I put away the Apple Watch. And that's when I found this brand of watch that I like to wear. And then I found several styles of it. But when I found that one stainless with the gold dive ring on it, that's the one. I don't wear it all the time. That's the fancy watch. I'm in my book. Frankly, it's still cheap compared to most people who collect watches. But in my book, it's a nice watch. So I don't take it all the time because I run into stuff. I don't want to break it. But I wore it all day with a dead battery. If that's not vanity, I don't know what is. If that's not paying someone to promote a podcast you've never recorded, or paying someone to ghostwrite a book or promote the cover or design the website or be your PR firm when you've never written a keynote speech, you've never delivered anything, you've never delivered consulting or training, you got nothing. You got nothing. Well, we're going to promote it. I like the way Myron Golden says it. He says, understand that personal brand is a multiplier. That's a pretty bold statement. Let me add to it a little bit. Personal brand is a multiplier, like money is a multiplier. If you're a jerk and you get more money, it just multiplies your opportunity to be a jerk. If you're not a good people, a whole lot of money doesn't make you a good people. Neither does being broke. There are a lot of people that think poverty is piety. No, if you're a jerk, more money and less money, neither one makes a difference. You've got to change the jerkness in you. You've got to become a better people so that when you have more money, you're a better people. Money's a multiplier. Some would say alcohol is a multiplier. If you're a jerk and you get drunk, now you're just a drunk jerk. If you're happy all the time and you get drunk, chances are you're going to be a happy drunk. If you're flirtatious all the time and you get drunk, you're a homewrecker, right? It's just a multiplier. See, the problem is people want to spend $10, $15, $20, $50,000 promoting what doesn't yet have substance. So the real challenge isn't just that the book isn't ready, the podcast isn't recorded, the show notes have never been created, the outline isn't there, the demographic doesn't exist. That's not the only problem. The real problem is the personhood isn't ready to be a personal brand. The personhood isn't ready to build a personal brand. They haven't built the person yet. The substance is still a little out to lunch, up for grabs. Anybody's guess. One day, solid, professional, astute, on top of their game. The next day, imposter syndrome has eaten their lunch. I know them because I've had them as clients. I've watched them extend their bank cards beyond imagination, credit card debt in the $250,000 range. Still trying to get the notoriety, still trying to get people to look at the watch. Well, it was right at lunch. I mean, I know that was 8 hours ago, but at noon it was good. Not like it, even a dead watch is right twice a day, noon and midnight, or 3 and 3, or whenever that is. And that's the luck of the draw, if you will, if you're one of those persons who's promoting the watch and not the time it is, or the time invested. And if you're investing your time and your money in the right graphic design and just the right commercials and just the right promotional devices, but the substance of what people get when they find you because you've been promoted is nil, I think not only have you done yourself a disservice because you've invested all that money in the wrong place. I mean, you wouldn't even think of going to the wheels and tire store and buying a new set of rims and a new set of tires when you don't own a car. You wouldn't think of going to the nicest factory or the nicest clothing stores, Macy's or Saks Fifth Avenue or Gucci, and buying just the right bikini, purse, shoes, hat, jacket, shawl. You wouldn't buy those things when you know I'm not ready to go out in public. I mean, I haven't showered in 3 days. My hair is a mess. It looks like a bird lives in there. But I got my Gucci on. Who would do that? Who would brand up the exterior when the rest of you is still a mess? I mean, who goes buys brand new clothes when they're still out of shape and they know this is not the way I want to look? I'm still working on my summer body. I've been working on it for 30 summers, but I'm still working on my summer body. I'm not wearing a Speedo anytime unless you bury me in it, and you better put a suit over that. I'm not a Speedo kind of guy. But there are people who are. And there are people who say, you know, I'll spend the time it takes to be in the gym to work out that hard so that I know that my body is summer ready, show ready, display ready. And there are people who say, well, those are gym muscles. They look pretty. They're not functional at all. I don't know if you've ever seen the guys who have the giant shoulders and the giant lats and their biceps are bigger than my thighs and they can't comb their hair. It's funny to watch them sometimes. Just put a Post-it note in the middle of their spine and watch them for 15 minutes like a turtle trying to reach the back. They can't. Their arms don't go there. They have no flexibility. They're big. They're like Stretch Armstrong. This is their pose. This is all they can do. Rawr, right? Is that what you want? No, that's not what you want. When you have all the substance and no use, that's a different kind of problem. But if you go promote yourself to be anything that you're not already, it's just an empty box. It's a puzzle box with no puzzle on the inside. It's a pizza box with no pizza on the inside. Who wants that? Nobody wants to crack open the Easter egg and find it empty. And yet, when you spend all the time building a personal brand or a professional brand, you've got everybody saying the right thing. You've got all the endorsements for your book or your podcast. You've got all the as seen on TV, all the logos of the big brand names, all the logos of the big media companies. They're all over everything that you're doing. And if I poked on you for 5 minutes, I would realize that, well, that's pretty much all there is to it. The deep substance of who you are, of what you offer, of how you're going to bring transformation to somebody's life is non-existent. Haven't thought that far. I mean, I know people who paid a company to get them booked on stages, $65,000. They went through the whole process. They followed all the steps, got paid the money for a representative company to book them on stages. And when the first booking came in and they said, all right, here's your opportunity. Show them your syllabus, show them your abstract, tell them what you have to offer. They went, I don't know what to tell them. Well, tell them what you talk about. Well, I haven't written a speech yet. What did you pay us $65,000 for? Well, what exactly are we promoting? Who is it that we're selling? Now, all of a sudden, the agency that got them booked kind of feels like a heel. Because whatever kind of persuasion you used for them to pick up a name they've never heard and give them an opportunity on the stage, they're not there. Now, There's one side of me that says, I got into the world of public speaking. Now, I've been speaking in front of crowds since I was 7. I've been training for years. Not the same level that John Maxwell has. That's only been recent. Not at the same level as Joe Rogan. That's only been recent. I think I was 26 the first time I was on a radio show, right? Hosting my own talk show. And I realized there's a lot more to this than I thought. A call-in talk show has to have some longevity and some audience and some content and something to talk about for people to call in. And you got to know the marketplace. And so I did that show for a couple of years and I moved on to other things, but the passion never left me. And so I did more research and I watched more journalists and I listened to more people do interviews. Now I've done over 300 interviews. This episode you're watching is 1,788 of Leading Leaders podcast. But there's close to 300 episodes of interview shows that I've done. Meet the Messenger, Lead the Narrative, Story Power TV, Transferring Grace TV. Those shows are separated by brand because the content, the intent, and the audience are different. One's a faith-based, tell us your life story kind of a show. We talk about businesses, we talk about politics, we talk about all kinds of stuff. I know my audience is faith-driven, but not all of my guests are. Lead the Narrative, purely about politics, current issues, debates, hard stuff. Stuff not everybody wants to talk about. There's only a dozen of those so far, but we're going to do more when we can find people who are not too cowardly to sit in the chair. Because people don't like tough questions. It's really kind of odd. Transforming Grace is about those couples that are struggling with addiction, because I struggled for 25 years with addiction and nearly wrecked my marriage. That was 22 years ago. This year's 32 years. When we talk to couples about the struggles they're going through, sometimes we find sage advice that we can still apply to our marriage to get better. And sometimes we realize this has turned into a session where my wife and I are really helping somebody else bring their marriage up, and we're letting the world watch us do it. That's substance, that's content. But we've never worked really hard to promote that. We make it available. And if you find it, awesome. If you're on OBBM and you just search my name, you'll find all of that content. But we haven't spent $50,000 for somebody to go, oh, I heard about this show, but there's no episodes yet. Oh, I heard you were on that show at that big name event, but you've only got the 5 shows? The 5 that were recorded that day on that stage in front of that banner with that guest? Interesting. Where's the rest of them? That was a good conversation. What else do you talk about? See, that's not what Joe Rogan did. That's not what Larry King did. They created the substance in themselves. They worked on themselves. They worked on their professionalism. They worked on their presentation. They worked on who will I help and how am I going to help them? Who are my guests going to be? What will we talk about? What questions will I ask them? How will I get good at the question asking game? If you don't do that work before you pay the promoter, if you don't do that work before you have the book cover designed, if you don't ask the tough questions and wrestle with the answers, you may have a beautiful book cover with nothing inside it. And that's not just a truth about publishing a book. That's the truth about people. There are a whole lot of people that have a beautiful book cover. I hate to use this analogy, but it's incredibly true. There are guys, I used to be one of them. You may not know this. There was a time that I was 298 pounds. I was the paranoid guy who wore both a belt and suspenders. And if I had a belt and suspenders and a tie on and a striped shirt that went up and down, I looked like Waldo inflated. There are pictures of that. That's sad to say. But I also, for a season, had one of those rubber make you sweat belts. And I would wear it not to sweat, because that will make you stink, but because it would squeeze my belly in and make me look a little bit trimmer. Not svelte, not Speedo ready, not stage ready, but a little bit slimmer. The stuffing didn't go away. It just squeezed it all into one place. And what happens? The minute you take that off, It all comes back into place. It's all visible again. There are a whole lot of people who've paid for professional branding and personal branding, and they've created an image. That's like a hot air balloon, or like somebody in one of those compression things, like back in the day when women would wear those corsets, or back in the day when women of Asian descent would wear those long rings around their neck to make their neck longer and their chin higher so they could look down their nose at you, and that's how you knew they were dignified. But see, all of these are created facades. They don't change the inner substance. If you want to grow other people, you got to work on you. Look, I don't care how much money, how much time, how much energy you've invested in being popular and being famous and being well known. I can't argue with Grant Cardone. Best known beats best all the time. I know people who get contracts for $15,000 for team building, and they never show up. They pay somebody else $100 to show up at the event and play games with beach balls and strings and helium-filled hula hoops. There's no real substance there. But if you got the right sales pitch and you got the right connections, you can make the money, because people will buy it. They'll buy what's sold well at least once. At least once. And if you sell it well and then sell it fast enough, nobody knows it was a waste. I challenge you not to be that kind of leader. I challenge you not to be that kind of communicator. Don't be the kind of person that 6 months from now people go, wow, I invested a whole lot in that and nothing. I can tell you, and you can ask them, any of my clients, one of the most common things I get from my clients as they're working with me and as they finish whatever that run is, 3 months, 6 months, 5 years, 10 years, what most of them say is, you didn't try to make me a clone of you, but you helped me discover who I was. You brought out the best in me. Now, unfortunately for many of them, they've already paid someone to create the book cover, build the website, build the landing page, make them famous. And they're famous for nothing. And some of them, once all that work is done, they realize that's not really who I am. I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars or hours in becoming that person, only to realize that's not really me. It's a great facade. It's the corset in place. It looks great from a distance, but the minute I become me, I don't even like me. Don't let that happen to you. I did find the store that matched the brand name of my watch and went in to have the battery replaced. And the person running that store couldn't do it. Couldn't get the back off the watch. Tried with all their might, took it to the back of the room just in case they broke it or something. Never got it, put it back together, handed it back to me and said, you're going to have to come back another time. I'm like, you're 2 hours from home. I'm not coming back another time. I walked down the road to a professional jeweler where I found an old aircraft mechanic who was working behind the counter. And he's like, dude, I'm an engineer. I will figure out how to get that off of there. He takes the whole thing apart, puts the battery back in it, puts it back on, and he goes, hang on a minute. This is a 50-meter diving watch. You don't plan to take it 50 meters. I'm like, 50 meters? No, I barely go 5 in the bottom of the swimming pool. I'm 50 meters. He said, yeah, that's what this watch is made for. That's why they couldn't get the back off. It's pressurized. Good to know. He said, it's still waterproof, but I wouldn't go below 50 meters with it. Like, unless I'm drowning, it ain't going that far. So I'm not worried about it. But see, it's capable more than me. It looks like a pro diver watch, because it is, and I'm not. Is that vanity? Is that pretending to be something that's not there? I'll let you be the judge. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Think storytelling's just for bedtime? Nah, it's the secret sauce for business magic. Stuck in a rut with bland pitches and yawning clients? Enter Boost Your Business with Story Power. 6 weeks of epic storytelling training. It's like leveling up in a video game but for your career. Master the art of narrative and watch connections blossom like a viral TikTok. Simple, impactful, and game-changing. Ready to transform your biz vibes? Dive in now and make storytelling your superpower.
This 6 weeks guided program is specifically designed for those people who say, I know I need to tell stories. I need to tell better stories because the ones I have are boring or they're not getting across. Or as John Maxwell says, everyone communicates and, well, few connect. Now, as a participant in this course, what I would really love to know from you, put it in the discussion on the course if you're already registered online. Send me a chat, send me a DM, send me a text, send me an email. I'd really love to know what you hope to get out of this course. Now, I can tell you what we're going to discuss, and I can tell you what I plan to teach and train you on, and I can tell you even what we plan to discuss each week on the calls for the next 6 weeks. I'm going to go over all of that for you in just a moment. I can also tell you that my clients who get the greatest success are the ones who apply the Story Power process to their business development to increase their impact, their influence, and their income. Now, the Story Power process includes story mining, story selection, story qualification, story crafting, connecting with your audience, and leading the narrative. And if you leave any one of those parts out, you're going to find that, well, you're just not as effective as you want to be. You're not going to grow your business to the same level. You're not going to lead with impact and influence like you hope to. I can also tell you that the people who apply these things, well, they're not failing in their business. The reason a lot of people fail in their business is they continue to fail to connect the solution they offer with the problem that their clients have. The pain and the solution never come together. And a lot of that failure is because they're not clearly articulating how their solution solves someone else's problem. It comes down to a question something like this: who do you help and how? Yes, that's one of the first things we're going to discuss over the next 6 weeks of Boost Your Business with Story Power.
Master the Story Power method to captivate your audience, improve workplace culture, and 10x your fundraising.
Scan the QR code to book your first coaching call or visit storypowercoach.com.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith,